Good evening, everyone. Today, I want to explore a topic that touches on connection, boundaries, and self-respect. It's not about pointing fingers or laying down rigid rules. It's about fostering healthier relationships and showing up in our lives as whole, authentic individuals. Your voice is your power. It is the most personal expression of who you are, your dreams, your values, your boundaries, and your ideas. It's the way you communicate your needs and the means by which you declare your presence in the world. But in the context of relationships, especially romantic ones, there can be subtle and sometimes not so subtle pressure to silence that voice. Perhaps you've experienced this. You don't share how you really feel because you're worried it will upset him. You hold back your dreams because you're afraid he won't understand or support them. Or maybe over time you've stopped voicing your opinions altogether because you've been made to feel that they're too much or not enough. This silence might seem like an easy way to avoid conflict, but it comes at a great cost to your sense of self. Losing your voice in a relationship often starts small. Maybe it's saying yes to things you don't truly want to do just to keep the peace. Maybe it's laughing along with jokes that don't sit right with you or agreeing with opinions you don't share because you're afraid of being seen as difficult. Over time, these moments of silence accumulate, and before you know it, the relationship starts to feel like a space where your voice doesn't matter. But let me tell you this, a relationship where your voice doesn't matter is not a partnership. It's not love. True love isn't about silencing yourself to fit someone else's mold. It's about bringing your full, authentic self to the table, flaws, strengths, opinions, and all, and being met with respect, curiosity, and care. When you lose your voice, you also lose your ability to advocate for yourself. You lose the opportunity to communicate what you need, what you dream of, and what you will not tolerate. You lose the chance to teach your partner who you are and what makes you come alive. Without your voice, a relationship becomes unbalanced. One person's needs and desires take precedence, while the other person fades into the background. Reclaiming your voice doesn't mean shouting louder or overpowering your partner. It means speaking with clarity and conviction about what matters to you. It's about saying, this is who I am, and these are my needs. It's about asserting your right to be heard, even when your voice trembles. And yes, it can feel scary. Vulnerability always does. There's always a chance that your voice might not be received well. But let me remind you, if someone truly values you, they will value your voice. They will listen not just to respond, but to understand. They will hold space for your fears, your dreams, your ideas, and your boundaries, even if they don't always agree. So speak up. Speak when something feels off. Speak when you're excited about something new. Speak when you're hurt. Speak when you're hurt. Speak when you need something. Your voice is not a luxury, it's a necessity. It's the bridge between you and your partner, and without it, connection becomes impossible. Remember, your voice is not just about what you say, it's also about how you live. Every choice you make, every boundary you set, every dream you pursue speaks volumes about who you are. And when you live authentically, you send a powerful message: this is me, and I am worthy of being heard. In a healthy relationship, there is room for two voices, yours and his. Neither needs to overshadow the other. Instead, they should harmonize, creating a melody of mutual respect and understanding. That harmony can only exist when both voices are allowed to sing. So don't lose your voice. Don't quiet your needs, your dreams, or your ideas to make someone else comfortable. Because when you lose your voice, you lose yourself, and you are far too valuable to let that happen. There's a beautiful vulnerability and love, a willingness to open your heart and let someone else in. When love is new, it can feel intoxicating, like this person has stepped into your life and brought with them a sense of completeness you didn't even realize you were missing. And while those feelings are natural, they can also be deceptive. Here's the truth: no one person should be the sole source of your happiness. No matter how much they love you, care for you, or bring joy into your life, placing the full weight of your happiness on another person is an impossible burden, one that even the best relationships can't sustain. Think about it: when you make someone your everything, you unintentionally give away your power. Your mood, your sense of worth, and your satisfaction with life become tethered to their actions, their emotions, and their availability. If they're happy, you're happy. If they're distant, you feel lost. Over time, this dynamic can erode your independence and place an unspoken pressure on the relationship to fix you in ways it never can. Happiness is an inside job. It's not something you find in another person, it's something you cultivate within yourself. And while a partner can add to your happiness, just as a great friend or a fulfilling job, they should never be the only source of it. Let's be honest, making someone else responsible for your happiness is not fair to them, nor is it fair to you. It can create a dynamic where the other person feels they have to constantly manage your emotions or live up to unrealistic expectations. It can also leave you feeling resentful or disappointed when they inevitably fall short, because no one can be everything to someone else. So how do we shift this mindset? How do we embrace love without losing ourselves in it? The first step is understanding that you are a whole person with or without a relationship. You don't need someone else to complete you. You are already complete. A relationship should be a partnership of equals, two individuals walking side by side, each bringing their own joy, purpose, and energy to the journey. Invest in the things that make you come alive outside of the relationship. Pursue hobbies, friendships, and passions that are uniquely yours. Build a life that is rich and fulfilling on its own, so that when you're in a relationship, you're not seeking to fill a void, but to share the abundance of who you are. This doesn't mean shutting your partner out or pretending you don't need them. It means recognizing that your happiness is not their job, it's yours. It means showing up as a full participant in your own life and inviting them to join you, not as the centerpiece of your world, but as a cherished part of it. When you cultivate your own happiness, something beautiful happens. You bring a sense of peace and confidence into the relationship. You no longer approach love from a place of neediness or dependency, but from a place of strength. And when challenges arise, and they always do, you're better equipped to navigate them, because your emotional well-being doesn't hinge entirely on the relationship. This doesn't just benefit you, it benefits your partner too. A man who truly loves you will want to see you thriving as an individual. He will be inspired by your independence, your joy, and your sense of purpose. He will celebrate your passions, not feel threatened by them. And together you'll create a relationship built not on dependency, but on mutual respect and admiration. Let's remind ourselves that love is a gift, not a crutch. It's a beautiful addition to life, but it is not the whole of it. When you take ownership of your happiness, you free yourself to love more fully and more authentically, without fear of losing yourself in the process. So don't make him the sole source of your happiness. Instead, build a life that makes you proud, one that is full of meaning and joy. And then when love enters the picture, it will be the cherry on top, not the entire dessert. You deserve that, and so does he. Boundaries. Just the word alone can feel intimidating, can it? It might even feel like a wall, something that separates or pushes people away. But in reality, boundaries are not barriers, they're bridges. They are the invisible lines that define who we are, what we value, and what we need to feel safe, respected, and whole. But here's where things can get tricky. When we care deeply for someone, we might feel tempted to blur those lines, to bend, stretch, or even erase them entirely in the name of love. We might tell ourselves it's not a big deal. If I adjust, maybe he'll be happy. Isn't that what love is about? But compromising your boundaries for someone else's comfort doesn't create a healthier relationship. It creates an imbalance, one where you're constantly giving and they're unknowingly taking. Why do we do it? Sometimes it comes from a desire to avoid conflict. You don't want to seem demanding or risk being labeled as too much other times. It's about fear of being rejected, fear of pushing someone away, or fear of being alone. And often it's tied to our deep need for connection. We think that saying no or enforcing a limit will make us less lovable, less desirable, or less easy to be around. But here's the truth: love that asks you to sacrifice your boundaries is not love, it's a transaction. And in the process, you risk losing yourself. When you compromise your boundaries for his comfort, you're essentially sending a message not just to him, but to yourself. You're saying, my needs are secondary, my feelings are negotiable, my comfort matters less than his. Over time, this erodes your sense of self-worth. You might even start to feel resentful, not because of what he's done, but because you've taught him that it's okay to overstep the boundaries you never firmly set. Healthy relationships require mutual respect, and respect begins with clarity. It's about saying, this is what I need to feel safe. This is what I value. This is what I value. This is what I won't tolerate. It's about trusting that the right person won't see your boundaries as a problem, but as a guide to loving you better. Let me be clear, setting boundaries doesn't mean creating ultimatums or shutting someone out. It's not about controlling another person or dictating their actions. It's about protecting your emotional well-being and honoring your own needs. For example, if you value honesty but find that he consistently withholds the truth, your boundary might be, I need transparency in our communication. If that's not something you can offer, this relationship might not work. Or if you need time to recharge, but he pressures you to spend every moment together, your boundary could be, I love our time together, but I also need space to take care of myself. The hardest part of boundaries isn't setting them, it's maintaining them. Because when you enforce a boundary, you might be met with resistance. He might push back, question your intentions, or try to guilt you into bending. This is where your strength comes in. Stand firm, not out of stubbornness, but out of self-respect. And here's the thing, boundaries are not just for your benefit, they're for his too. They create clarity, which eliminates confusion and resentment. They help him understand what matters to you and how to show up for you in a way that feels meaningful. When you set boundaries, you're giving him the opportunity to rise to the occasion, to meet you where you are, and to show you the respect you deserve. There will always be moments in a relationship where compromise is necessary, but there's a big difference between compromise and sacrifice. Compromise is about finding middle ground while still honoring your needs. Sacrifice, on the other hand, is giving up a part of yourself for someone else's comfort. And that's not love, it's self-abandonment. So let's be clear, your boundaries are not optional, they're not negotiable. They are an essential part of who you are, and they deserve to be honored. The right man will see them not as obstacles, but as roadmaps to loving you well. He will understand that respecting your boundaries is not about control, but about care. And here's the most beautiful part: when you honor your boundaries, you teach him to honor his as well. Together, you create a relationship where both people feel safe, valued, and respected. Don't compromise your boundaries for his comfort, because the right relationship won't ask you to give up pieces of yourself. It will ask you to show up fully as you are. And that is where true love begins. It's so easy to fall in love with the potential of someone, isn't it? To look at them not for who they are today, but for who they could be tomorrow. It's human nature to want to believe in people, to see their strengths, even when they can't see them themselves. You might think, if I just give him time, if I just love him enough, he'll grow into the person I know he can be. But this is where we need to pause, because potential is not the same as reality. And too often we find ourselves excusing behaviors, justifying actions, and ignoring the warning signs, those red flags, waving right in front of us all, because we're focused on the dream of what could be instead of the reality of what is. Red flags are not random. They're indicators, signals meant to protect us, to guide us, and to tell us when something isn't aligned with our values or our emotional well-being. They show up in different ways. Maybe it's the way he dismisses your feelings in the middle of an argument, or how he's inconsistent with his words and actions. Perhaps it's the subtle put-downs masked as jokes, the way he avoids accountability, or his refusal to communicate when things get tough. And yet, despite these glaring signs, there's a part of you that wants to rationalize. He didn't mean it like that. He's just stressed. He'll change once he realizes how much I care. But let's be honest, how often do we allow our hope for someone's potential to blind us to the reality of their patterns? Ignoring red flags often comes from a place of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of losing the investment of time, energy, and love you've already poured into the relationship. But here's the thing: no amount of hope or effort can transform someone who isn't willing to change. And no amount of potential can erase the damage caused by repeated red flags. Sometimes we confuse patience with acceptance. We tell ourselves that being a good partner means being understanding, being forgiving, being willing to wait. But there's a difference between supporting someone through growth and tolerating behaviors that undermine your worth and your boundaries. Patience doesn't mean ignoring disrespect. It doesn't mean overlooking dishonesty. And it doesn't mean sacrificing your emotional safety for the hope of a better tomorrow. When you ignore red flags, you're not just ignoring the signs in him, you're ignoring the voice inside you that's telling you something isn't right. That voice, that gut feeling, is there for a reason. It's your inner wisdom, your intuition, trying to protect you from heartache and harm. But the more you silence it, the harder it becomes to trust yourself. Pay attention to the patterns, not the promises. Promises can be beautiful, filled with hope and potential, but patterns reveal the truth. Does he follow through on what he says, or do his actions consistently fall short? Does he take responsibility for his mistakes, or does he deflect and blame? Does he lift you up, or does he leave you feeling drained and unsure of yourself? When we focus solely on potential, we run the risk of falling in love with an idea rather than a person. We project our desires, our hopes, and our dreams onto them, creating a version of them in our minds that may not align with who they actually are. And in doing so, we overlook the very real, very present signs that this person may not be capable or willing to meet us where we are. Red flags are not challenges to be overcome or problems to be fixed. They're opportunities to pause, reflect, and make decisions rooted in self-respect and self-awareness. They're there to remind you that love is not just about potential, it's about partnership, accountability, and alignment. There's something powerful about love. It can make you want to give, to share, to merge your life with someone else's. But sometimes in the process of trying to belong, you may find yourself shrinking. Shrinking your ambitions, your passions, your personality, and even your presence, just to fit into the framework of someone else's life. It might start small. Maybe you begin to downplay your achievements because you notice he gets uncomfortable when you talk about them. Or perhaps you stop sharing certain opinions because they don't align with his. Over time, you might even start to feel like you're walking on eggshells, carefully navigating conversations or decisions to avoid disrupting the balance of the relationship. You tell yourself it's okay. I don't need to be all of me. I just want to make this work. But the truth is, relationships are not about squeezing yourself into someone else's world. They're about creating a world where both of you can thrive as your authentic selves. When you diminish yourself, you're not just hiding pieces of who you are, you're teaching yourself that parts of you aren't worthy of being seen. Why do we do this? Sometimes it's about fear. Fear of being too much, fear of outgrowing him, or fear of losing the relationship altogether. Other times it's about societal messages that tell women to be accommodating, to be easygoing, to put others first. And let's not forget the pressure to be agreeable, to avoid being labeled as selfish or demanding. But here's the thing, diminishing yourself doesn't make the relationship stronger, it makes it unbalanced. When you suppress your light to make someone else feel comfortable, you're not just denying yourself, you're denying the relationship the opportunity to grow in truth and honesty. Think about the things that make you who you are. Your dreams, your values, your quirks, the things that light you up and make you feel alive. Now imagine setting those aside piece by piece because you're worried they might not fit into his vision of what a relationship should look like. It's heartbreaking, isn't it? Because those pieces are not just parts of you, they are you. You might find yourself saying yes when you mean no, or agreeing to things that don't align with your values just to avoid conflict. You might stop pursuing the hobbies or friendships that make you happy because they don't seem to fit into the dynamic of the relationship. And before you know it, you've built a version of yourself that feels smaller, quieter, less vibrant just to accommodate someone else's expectations or limitations. What's often overlooked in these moments is that a relationship built on suppression isn't sustainable. It might seem easier in the short term to mold yourself into what you think he wants, but in the long term, it leads to resentment toward him for not accepting you fully and toward yourself for not standing in your truth. When you diminish yourself, you're sending a message not just to him, but to yourself that your needs, desires, and identity are less important than the relationship. You're telling yourself that it's better to fit in than to stand out, better to conform than to be celebrated for who you are. And over time, this erodes your sense of self-worth. The right relationship won't ask you to choose between being loved and being authentic. It won't require you to dim your light so someone else can shine. It won't force you to trade your individuality for a sense of belonging. Instead, it will celebrate the fullness of who you are, encouraging you to grow, evolve, and embrace every part of yourself. When you feel the urge to diminish yourself, pause and reflect. Ask yourself, am I doing this out of love or out of fear? Am I making myself smaller to avoid conflict, to gain approval, or to feel secure? And most importantly, what would it look like to show up fully, unapologetically as me? In every relationship, your authenticity, worth, and boundaries must remain intact. Love should never come at the cost of losing yourself. To thrive, you must honor your voice, maintain your happiness independently, and uphold your boundaries without compromise. Never ignore red flags or settle for potential over patterns, and above all, refuse to shrink who you are to fit into someone else's world. True love celebrates your fullness, not fragments. When you choose to stand in your truth, you create space for a relationship rooted in respect, mutual growth, and unwavering authenticity. Love deeply, but never at the expense of yourself.